So guys, we are continuing with PVLAN. In our previous class, we had started the theoretical part. We understood how exactly PVLAN works. Today, we'll discuss more theoretical part of PVLANs, like we'll discuss about limitations, restrictions, requirements, okay? And we'll also discuss about, we'll also do a practical of PVLAN today. So this is our topic for today. So when I talk about restrictions, you can say like PVLAN trunk port supports only IEEE 802.1q encapsulation. It does not support any other encapsulation methods. And isolation or a community VLAN only can have one PVLAN association with it. It means, see, actually how the concept of a private VLAN works. Let me tell you. Let's say this is switch. On this switch, we have a multiple ports. Okay. On this switch, we'll be creating a VLANs. Okay. We'll have a primary VLAN. Let's say a primary VLAN number, you can give anything like as per our document, as per the lab. Let me see what PVLAN number I have taken. I have taken 600 as a community VLAN. Okay. I have taken 400 as an isolated VLAN. And I have taken 200 as a 200 as a promiscuous one. So let's say we need one primary VLAN. So as per the topology, primary VLAN, you can see here, community VLAN. Okay. Here you can see VLAN 400 as isolated VLAN, right? And you can see, first of all, I created one VLAN called as a 600. And I said you are a part of a private VLAN and you are community. So let me take this. Before this, I have a community VLAN. And you can see community VLAN is 600. This is my VLAN number that I'll be creating. After that, we have a VLAN 400 that has been created as an isolated VLAN. So I have an isolated VLAN as a 400. And here I have created one more VLAN called as a primary VLAN. Okay. So these are the total VLANs that I have created. Right. So let's see how does this VLANs works. So first of all, you'll create one primary VLAN. This round shape is basically your primary VLAN, 200. And after that, inside this, say I'll create one more VLAN and I'll say I'll create one more VLAN and I'll name it as a community. Okay. And I'll put this community. I have to make this community a part of a primary VLAN. Okay. After that, I'll create one more VLAN called as a isolated. I'll create one more VLAN like isolated. Okay. This is my isolated VLAN and VLAN number is 400. And this also I'll put under the primary. So basically what you have to do, what I'm telling here, you need to have one primary VLAN and that primary VLAN should get associated with two secondary VLANs. Under that, we have to associate two secondary VLANs. Okay. If the community VLAN 600 is associated with the primary VLAN 200, I can't associate again this VLAN with another private VLANs. Like primary VLANs. So let's say I have one more primary VLAN. Let's say 300. So if community is already a part of community VLAN 600 is already a part of primary VLAN, then I cannot again make it a part of another primary VLAN 300. That's not possible. So one secondary VLAN. So you can say this community or isolated are the secondary VLANs. Okay, you can call them as a secondary VLANs. Okay, and this secondary VLANs should be associated with your primary VLANs. At a time, only one primary VLAN associations can be. You can't associate secondary VLANs to two primary VLANs. Not possible. Guys, are you getting my point? What I'm saying? Secondary VLANs and a primary VLAN. So first of all, you have to go to a switch. You have to create this community VLAN, means isolated VLANs, primary VLANs, all these things, and you have to make these communities and isolated VLANs to a part of primary VLAN. So this is what you have to say. Say in a configuration what I did. Creating an individual VLANs and telling them you are a community, you are isolated, and primary VLAN. And inside the primary VLAN, I'm telling private VLAN association with 400 and 600. 400 means your 400 is like isolated and 600 is your community. So associated both 600 and 400 with your primary. This is what I'm telling. Okay. So what happens with these interfaces? Later on, what you'll do, you'll put them as a community. Okay, community. How do you put them as a community? You'll go to a particular interface and you will say switch port access, and or you can say you'll put them in a particular VLAN. I'll go to this interface and I'll say you are a part of VLAN 600. Again, I'll go to this interface, I'll say you are a part of VLAN 600. So now these two are belonging to community. I'll go to this interface, I'll say you are a part of isolated. This is how I can indicate. I'll go to this part, I'll say you're a promiscuous port. For promiscuous, we don't have to create any type of VLANs. Okay, it's a one of the mode you can say, or the configuration you can say. Now let's come back. Few switches does not support PVLANs like 2950. VTP does not support PVLANs. Very important point over here. I hope you guys are aware of VTP, right? Tell me, guys, what is VTP? What do you mean by VTP? Virtual trunking
VTP.
protocol. Okay. So by default, VTP is enabled on your switch. So make sure VTP is disabled on a switch, or else your switch is in a transparent mode. Okay. Two conditions. Either you disable VTP or you take your firewall in a transparent mode when you want to configure a PVLAN. So these are the restrictions. Limitations are like, do not configure a remote span or a span or a remote span VLAN as a private VLAN's primary or secondary. Okay, means if you have configured any VLANs like for RSpan, or you guys are aware of RSpan, right? What is a span, RSpan? You can create one VLAN and you can tell that you are going to act like a RSpan or something like that, right? So if one VLAN is already in use with some other things, then you should not use that particular VLAN for PVLANs. Okay, do not configure private VLAN ports on interface configured for these other features. It means if you have configured a private VLAN at any interface, then do not configure all this stuff at that particular interface. Dynamic access port VLAN membership, dynamic trunking protocol DTP. After that, LACP protocol. Like for Ether channel. Okay, MVR or VLAN voice VLAN. Right. In a real time and all, you might have a voice VLANs, right? After that, WCCP protocol. So all this stuff. If you say it is pre-config, if you see at the sweet spot, if you have configured the PVLANs, then do not configure this stuff. These are the kind of the limitations. Even with the port security, you have a limitations. Okay, if you can configure IEEE 802.1x port-based authentication on a private VLAN port, okay, but do not configure IEEE with port security, voice VLAN or user per user ACL on the private VLAN ports. So these are the restrictions, guys. You cannot go for all these things. Same thing, whatever we have discussed earlier. So these are the limitations. And for the configuration, what are the requirements? Set a VTP mode, or you can say VTP mode to transparent. And you can say create a secondary VLANs, create a primary VLAN, associate primary VLANs, or sorry, secondary VLANs to a primary VLANs, configure interfaces to isolated or the community interfaces. Optional are like promiscuous or the trunk ports. So this is what you guys need to understand. Okay. So let's create one topology and let's do a lab. If we have one more switch with the same PVLANs, with the community VLAN, you can do that. See, Arvind, actually what happens, we are not in our client and the server mode. It's a transparent mode, right? You understand? It's a transparent mode. In a transparent mode, what happens? No synchronizations. It's a kind of individual configuration. You're getting point, right? What I'm saying? I'll take 4 routers. R1, R2, R3, R4. Let me start this. As I told you, we'll be doing isolation within a same subnet. So I'll take 10.11.11.0/24. Okay. I'll take 18. Sorry, that's a font size actually. Let me take console. See what basically I want. Let me take a shape here. These two will belong to community. This belongs to isolated. And one more we have, that's promiscuous. So promiscuous is like should be accessible with all these interfaces. Okay. So basically this is promiscuous and should be accessible with all these interfaces. Okay. I'll create a notepad. (10.11.11.1) with net mask 24. Oh shit. I don't need to give default route. Simply take this configuration. Take .2. Take R3.3. .4. So let's copy and paste this. Now let's check a connectivity. So overall, we'll check a connectivity from R1 like 10.11.11.2, 3, and dot 4. All good. We can communicate. So first of all, what you guys have to do as a configuration, see, either you have to say no VTP mode or you can say VTP transparent. Any one of these. You can take this, any one of these commands, you guys can use it. So now let's say, for example, I'll go to a switch. Main play you have only with the switch, nothing else. Okay. So first of all, you'll if you say show VTP status, what happened? Currently, we see it's in a VTP server mode. Either I can say no VTP mode, okay, or you can say VTP mode transparent, like this. If you say do so VTP status, now you can see it's in a transparent mode. Okay. Okay. So after this, what you can do, we need to configure, see, according to our task, we need to create a 2 secondary VLANs and 1 primary VLAN. These 3 VLANs has to be created, right? So first of all, we'll create a VLAN 600 and we'll say private VLAN community. So we'll say VLAN 600. First of all, creating a VLAN, and we'll say private VLAN. Press the question mark. You can see you want community, isolated, primary, or association, whatever you need, you can type. So we'll go with the community. Okay. Again, I'll take a VLAN 400 and I'll say private VLAN isolated. Created 2 VLANs. Again, I'll create a VLAN 200 and here I'll say private VLAN. You're a part of a primary. And inside this, we have to say private VLAN association. Okay. And what VLANs you want to associate? 400 isolated and 600 community. These two you can, make a part of the VLANs. Now, if you say so VLAN, you can see here, we have a primary VLANs as a 200 and secondary VLANs which are associated with. This is how you guys have to configure it. Okay. Oh, I copied at the wrong place. So once this is done, now you guys have to go to a particular interface. Okay, you can see. You'll go to a particular interface and this is how you guys will modify and configure it. Now let's say I want, first of all, this port. This is my G0 by 0 port wherein R1 is connected. So 400 is isolated. It means I'll go to interface G0 by 0 and I'll say private VLAN host, means I'll say switch port mode as a private VLAN host, and after that I'll say switch port private VLAN host association, 200 as a primary VLAN and 400 as a isolated VLAN. So I made it a part of primary 200 and secondary VLAN as a isolated. So this interface becomes as a isolated one. So you can come to switch, configure terminal, and this interface is a part of isolated, right? Now, similarly, what I can do, you can see this G0 by 2 and G0 by 3 interface G0 by 2, okay, and interface G0 by 3. These two interfaces making a part of primary VLAN 200, secondary VLANs community 600. So these two interfaces are part of secondary VLANs. Sorry, I copied on the wrong device. It was on the switch. Okay. Now the last, this I want to make it as a promiscuous. Now see how do you configure as a promiscuous. So you'll go to our interface. This is G0 by 1. And here you will say, first of all, switch port mode private VLAN. And instead of saying host, what you'll say, it's a promiscuous port. So port type is actually a promiscuous. And it's what we say, what we do this port, a mapping with private, the primary VLAN 200, secondary VLAN 400 and 600. Okay. So we say here we mapped with the primary and the secondary VLANs to your promiscuous port. So promiscuous can communicate with everyone. So I'll come here and do it. Guys, did you understand these commands? Is there any problem? I copied the command. Okay. So interface status, if you see, you guys can see here, primary isolated VLAN, and I can see a part of G0 by 1, a part of a primary VLAN. This is, and here I can see community and primary and community. If I see, let's see the running interface of G0 by 1. So running interface G0 by 1. Okay, I can see internally, these are the mappings with a sub VLANs. So in a status, it only shows a primary, does not show a secondary associations. So primary, it only shows. Okay, now let's come to our promiscuous. So guys, promiscuous can talk, correct me if I'm wrong. Promiscuous can talk with isolated but can't talk with community, correct? Tell me what's the correct answer. Can talk to all? Okay. Actually, I was not aware of that. Okay, that's why I asked you. 10.11.11.4. Sorry. Let's say 1. That's my IPing .1 was R1 was correct. .2 community. .3 community. So promiscuous is able to work with or talk to everyone. Now let's come to isolated R1. Isolated to community, it won't work. Is that correct? Is it? Okay, let's see then. Ping 10.11.11.2. Ping .3. So isolated, not communicating with community, but communicating with promiscuous. Now come to community to, now correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Community to isolated, it cannot work. Community to promiscuous, it can work. Okay. Community to community, it can't work. Tell me.
Wrong.
Which one is wrong?
It can work. Community to community work.
Okay. Simply, I was testing. So 10.11.11.2, it can work. .4, it works. So guys, am I clear with PVLAN? Take 2 minutes break and then What is the maximum number of secondary VLANs can be associated to a primary? Is it going to based on the switch model number? See, definitely it will be depending on the model number. Okay. So as we have a limitations of a VLANs also, it's not like you can create an unlimited number of VLANs. We do have a limitations of a VLANs also, right? Can you see VLAN ID? We have a limitation like 1 2 4 0 4 sorry 94. This part, Rupesh. Okay. I can't create beyond than this, right? That's one limitation. Uh, as I think, see, I really didn't check like how many private, primary VLANs can be created. But as they have given the number of VLANs over here, so accordingly, like say only creating a primary VLAN won't work, right? So you can create, you have to create a primary and the secondary VLANs. So in this range, you can create numbers, whatever you want. But accordingly, you need to have those many ports also, right? Now, let's say you have a 48 port switch, you have 24 port switches, 16 port switches. So even having these many VLAN numbers, do you think you'll be able to create so many number of VLANs and you'll be using that? No, right? So basically, whatever requirement you have can be fulfilled. Okay. Whatever the number of primary and the secondary VLANs will be required, that will be enough, and that much you can do. Okay. Mm, take 2 minutes break, guys. Again, we'll start a new topic. Okay. This is done. Okay. You guys know what's a DHCP snooping, right? Rogue DHCP, those things. That you must have gone through CCNA, right? Yes or no?
I need to revise those topics.
Which topic?
DHCP.
Revise it. You have a time. See, everything it's not important to cover, okay? You guys should practice. These all are basics which I'm discussing right now. Okay. In this topic, what you guys don't know, tell me. I'll start with that only. Others, oh God, NetFlow, you guys don't know? CCNA, they didn't cover NetFlow? Okay. Okay, let's start NetFlow. What is packet flow? Where packet flow is required? Okay, let's discuss about NetFlow. See, NetFlow is basically a way of capturing your network information. Whatever the traffic is passing through your network, will capture it and will try to understand. In a simple language, if I tell, uh, at your home, you have a landline bills, right? You might have seen a landline bill, right? Everyone? Or let's say your postpaid bills. What happens in that? Total number of calls, outgoing calls, incoming calls, all the details you get, right? Which number called, what was the call duration. So basically, you get all the informations. The same how you can imagine, like you'll get the details of what for the network traffic passing through a interface. Okay. So NetFlow is basically used to capture a network traffic and to analyze it to get the network information. Okay. Let me show you a document for NetFlow. Basically, whenever you guys have to capture the network informations, that is basically called as a telemetry. Telemetry means what? Like collecting your network's information for what? For monitoring purpose. That's basically called as a telemetry, right? So when you say telemetry based access, then few things you guys have to take care of. Don't you think in a telemetry methods, your NTP would be playing a vital role, isn't it? Time synchronization. If time synchronization is not proper, just collecting the information of a traffic would not be enough. Now, what time did the traffic hit? What time did the log appeared on the particular device? Even that matters. Okay. So NTP is one of the default thing that comes inside a telemetry. Other part, what happens? NetFlow. So NetFlow is a technology or a tool to understand who, what, when, where, how network traffic is flowing. Okay. This helps in understanding the network behavior, business process improvement, and audit trials of how the network is used. But make sure that you understand NetFlow is not like a sniffer. It's not like once we start the sniffer, it will keep, showing you the updates. Not like that. It's not like we sniff anything. Okay. Or we can only take a particular type of, a packet of that moment. Nothing like, it's not like a Wireshark, which captures all the traffic that flows through. NetFlow is like a telephone landline bill, as I told you, from which you can learn lots of informations like how many calls, what was the call rate, duration, right? Call STD or ISTD, all these things you guys can know from that. So, see, this thing, what I'm talking about, is actually a traditional thing. Traditional in the sense, what you can say, like legacy method. In a big
Outdated.
sorry,
Outdated.
you can say, but think about the small companies, okay, wherein I have like 10, 20 devices. I can't afford a devices like DNAC. If I go to purchase one DNAC, new brand new device, it will cost me 1 crore. Their company's turnover is not 1 crore, right? And if company thinks to buy devices like a DNAC, is it possible for them? Even for them to buy a simple any like event manager devices also, it's very difficult for them to purchase. I'm talking about SIEM devices. Are you guys aware of SIEM devices? Any SIEM devices? What is SIEM? Huh, QRadar is one of them. QRadar, Splunk, Alien Vault. Have you guys heard about it? Yeah, SOC. Anything that helps you to manage the events. Okay. What's a responsibility of SOC engineer? It's a security operations center, right? So wherein you need to analyze the packet, you need to analyze the event generated. Okay. Just Google out some SIEM devices. See, I'm trying to make you understand in a different way. Okay. Instead of talking packet flow, NetFlow, I'm talking about what is a use of NetFlow, or what's a today, what's a demand of today. I'm like, is NetFlow really a required thing in a big environments, or it's required in a small environment? What's basically a use purpose, where it can be used, all those things. Okay. So basically here, if I say SIEM devices, so if you see security information and event manager devices, you can see multiple SIEM devices. Like Imperva also has a SIEM device. Okay. Splunk, you can go with the Splunk also. So it's a SIEM device. Okay. So basically what these guys helps you to do, it helps you to analyze, it helps you to, you can see SIEM, security analytics. Okay. Investigations and forensics. Now these are big things what I'm talking right now. Okay. Now tell me guys, who can afford this type of devices? Small companies, do you think they'll be affording such type of devices like Splunk and all? Can they do that? No, right? But I need some management in my network, but I can't afford a big devices also. See, use of Splunk is huge. Okay. Storage is huge, compressions are there. I can even compress the logs of years and years of logs. Now, let's say in a banks and all, whenever any fraud happens, let's say you were outside of the country and in your account someone has taken 2 lakhs rupees. When you came after 2 years and you saw your bank statement and all, you found some amount is missing, After 2 years, if you go and claim for that amount in your account, whatever the fraud transactions has happened, can bank deny that I won't do an investigation? Tell me. Can bank deny that? Never, right? So how bank is going to prove that it was fraud or it wasn't a fraud? Now let's say if a transaction was supposed to be done based on the OTP, so OTP was generated or not? What time OPT was generated? Right. Where transaction had happened? Was a transaction done based on the OTP? Many things are there, right? At what time did the transaction happen? I can get all these informations based on what? Based on the events that got generated, right? And if I say, hey, I don't have any storage for the events more than 1 year, then what will happen? So think about millions of logs and the events getting generated per day. Just think about if one log is of 10 KB also, then what will be a storage required for millions of logs that gets generated per day? Just think in large scale. Okay. So when you go in a large scale, there you require a large things, large devices that can store your data, that can compress your data, that can secure your data. In Cisco also, we have multiple types of devices now that can work like a SIEM device. Like we have Stealth Watch, we have DNAC. So DNAC is not a single engine device. DNAC is like multiple devices engine, combined together to work. If I want, DNAC to work like a SIEM device, it can work like that. I want to do a centralized managing, even it can do that. If I want to analyze the network traffic, even I can do that. So multiple advantages are there depending on the technology that you want to use. Now come to a lower level. I have a small organization. Okay. I can't afford big devices. In that case, how would I get some record of my network flow? So I can use those protocols, those informations which can be affordable. I have a router and the switches, right? So on the router itself, how can I implement? What can I implement to get the informations? I'm not much into a security, then my work label also won't be so I mean, I would not need so security to a data also, right? Small organization, a small business, but I want to keep a record of a network flow, right? Network informations. I want to keep a record of those things. For that, I need like source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, what type of a protocol, where I have applied, what's the direction, right? How much packets are getting heated. All those informations are basically done by, or you get it by NetFlow. So simple, small organization to gain a simple information, we use a NetFlow. Now, did you get my point, guys? What is NetFlow? Okay. See, I have a task for you. NetFlow and URPF. These two topics will be done tomorrow. So I want you guys to go through what's a URPF and do more research on NetFlow. I want you to know like how many versions on a NetFlow do we have now? Which NetFlow versions we don't have? Such things. Please do some research on that. Okay, these are the small topics. We can easily do it. Okay. After that, we'll discuss about URPF. 2 more classes done after that. By Wednesday, it will be done. Okay, guys. I'll see you then. Take care.